probably higher on my list.
Okay, you were right. I missed that we were back, and happy to see that Fabiano, whatever we needed to work on there. Shout out to the team working hard to help.
Yeah,
the
they
players
actually shout out to the team because they must have just got on it much better and quicker than expected. Not a, it's a good problem to have, let's say.
Yeah, here we go. All right, well, let's see. We got an end game. We were already more than a minute and a half in, so my apologies for that. Do we want to back up and see the opening? I thought we were going to be in a night ending for a minute.
Let's especially because now it's probably a bit more thought placed into the moves. Let's do a brief scan of the opening there.
Okay. Queen's Gambit
pretty thematic stuff, and you see the delayed knight on G1 usually means it's going to E2. Otherwise, we would have seen knight F3 much earlier on in the position.
This is pretty straightforward, traditional Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit
I'll say that the move A4 to me is like I would. It's almost like if I was coaching a student, I would say that's probably a mistake, like a move not to play. But I certainly won't use that move here with Fabi. He's at that level of excellence in chess that he can now make those quote unquote mistakes again. Like he's good enough to know when they're allowed to be played. And trust me, the idea is much deeper. But usually you probably wouldn't do it because it weakens the B4 square. We can see how Fabi continued. He's saying, let me shut down what's going on there and maybe go for F3, E4. But it looks like things liquidated much quicker because of this push with C5.
No, it's a good point because normally this setup is designed for F3 and E4. That's why you're doing the rook thing, and that's why you have the knight not on the F3 square. So to go back to the traditional development of the knight on F3, but not have the quote-unquote minority attack, which is what white often does in this structure to advance the two pawns, the queen side. So white kind of didn't have either plan here, which means I feel like advantage Magnus. And as we get caught up to the live game, black did kind of get a good spot here. Although, wow, these tactics got wild.
Yeah, at this point, you're really focused on a position that is fundamentally better for white. Like the structure, everything is better. So that's why Magnus is going knight A4, knight B2. He's happy to get a mess here because it doesn't look good if white just plays B3, solidifies A4. So I understand why Magnus went for this, but it also does not reek of desperation. He kind of looks like he's inviting all of this, and he's happy to sack the exchange because of this great C4 square anchored in and this B pawn, which is actually quite dangerous.
Yeah, he does sack the exchange. Fabi goes for it and then gives it right back with rook to B1 because he'd rather eliminate this dangerous B pawn than keep the exchange. And just like that, we're pretty much caught up to the live position where the endgame is teeny bit better for black because you have this extra pawn, but it's currently well blockaded by Fabi.
Yeah, king F8, it's almost a remarkably tame position here with that one pawn advantage. I will say it's probably a little bit worse for Fabi than the engine's giving it credit for. I would say this is kind of significant here. The king on H1 is quite far from the action. It appears as though there's a bit of a bishop A6. Like, if bishop A6 can work and you can get your hands on this B pawn, then equality is a little bit easier to find because bishop A6, bishop C8, knight C6 is a very funny looking, like, I guess, exploiting the pin and then taking the B7 pawn. So I think that variation is why we saw H3, so that there's no back rank issues for the white king. But I'm not sure that you're actually claiming this pawn. I think it's all about that calculation, Danny.
Well, because bishop c8 does two things. It doesn't just overprotect the pawn. It actually frees up the d7 square, right? To Amon's point, don't play king e7 because you get these weird tactics. But if you play bishop a6 now, knight to d7 can attack the rook. And now you're choosing either keeping the pin, which will let the pawn advance maybe at some point, or you move the rook off, and that would, of course, lose your bishop. So I think bishop c8
I got another one for you, Danny. Like, you're pointing out king e7, knight c6, but another funny one is a bishop a6. And if rook a8, bishop takes b7, it's almost rook b8, right? And it's like, it's like, back into this pin, and I'm like getting lost trying to calculate who's actually getting out ahead. Rook takes f6 might have to be played there.
It's wild. I do think knight to d7 would be, anyway, so this is all kinds of weird tactics, but it is the key storyline of the game. Will white find a way to not just keep this pawn blockaded, but maybe create other problems, or does black get enough time to... Okay, where are we at?
Well, I'm looking at no camera here for Fabi. That's where we're at. I mean, his time's ticking down. I don't see a
Oh
webcam,
no.
and
Oh no, I didn't even see
yeah,
it.
it's looking like bad to
Wow.
worse type of thing. Same situation. I actually, maybe to Game Op's credit, I didn't realize that they had figured things out that
Right.
quickly. I thought they were still looking into that, and I don't know. It looks like it's kind of same troubles here for Fabi to navigate.
Wait, was King E7 actually played?
There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, the game's going on. King E7
I'm not
was
gonna lie, Danny. We were on the analysis board here. I thought that you took us here and were showing the tactic, like instructive
No,
moment.
I was letting you finish your sentence. I didn't want to interrupt, but I was sitting
Oh my
there
God.
wondering whether because it was no hands Dan. It wasn't me. I think King E7 was a blunder by Magnus, and Fabi just maybe because of his time related issues, which is unfortunately a really
Because
ominous.
at that point we weren't even
thing.
sure. Maybe Fabi, if he was connect, he's probably just almost getting back to the position, just happy to make a move so that he's continuing to play. And it just so happened that in that moment Magnus blundered, but it's so unlike Magnus with all that time. I don't know what we just witnessed, actually, Danny. I'm as confused as probably our audience is right now, watching Fabi navigate time pressure and Magnus blunder away his pawn there, blunder away the exchange with King E7 is very uncharacteristic.
Couldn't agree more, but King E7 definitely did happen, or it wouldn't be on D6. So there was no relay
Yeah,
error
you're right.
here, right? This isn't a DGT board, folks, right? This isn't
Yeah.
some sort of you pressed the wrong square. So there's no world where the king is on E5 if it hadn't gone to E7, which means we did see that blunder by Magnus right at the craziness of Fabi losing his connection again. Okay, this could be a wild day for reasons we didn't anticipate. Amon, who knows what's ahead for us?
Exactly. I mean, I guess we are just kind of back into the game normally here, and assuming that Fabi's kind of maintaining his connection just fine, I guess we're sort of headed towards equality. I do think that, if anyone's having a conversation about maybe being slightly better, could it be Fabi here with this pawn? I like the dark square control, but ultimately, I don't think with a minute that Magnus is really going to let anything happen here, right?
Well, I'm more worried about Fabi's connection in regards. I mean, yes, Magnus has more time, and I'm just the position that Fabiano lost in game one, for those just tuning in, was also a draw, and Fabiano lost on time. He's struggling with the connection, not in his normal setup. So I look at Fabi's time and go, "Uh-oh, I hope he doesn't get in that spot again." So,
yeah, absolutely. There was actually a moment instead of bishop c2 where I thought a funny move, maybe even a good one, was g6, sacking the pawn in order to play king g5, king f6. Apart from that, there doesn't look like there's too much for these players to play for. But if I'm Magnus, I'm playing on a little bit because there's clearly some connection issues here. You never know what's going to happen. The game does end in a draw, a fair result, and I think Danny, at this point, after kind of both games going in a similar trend at the end for Fabi, it's actually